What is going on, Pirate Nation? Welcome in to Jungle Tales, an ECU baseball podcast, episode 5, coming to you here on Tuesday, August 27th. If you're watching us live tonight, I'm going to be talking a lot about the Pirates' current roster, as well as some guys that are committed in future classes. And right now, welcome in the GM of the Dirtbags and also an associate scout with the Miami Marlins, and that is Trey Daly. Trey, we appreciate your time this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no doubt. Always enjoyed talking college baseball with you and, finding out about those future Pirates. And, I ran into you, I guess it was not quite a month ago up at Wake Forest at David Couch Ballpark as you were there for the prep baseball report and the East Coast super sophomore games. And, obviously plenty of talent there. And, but before we dive into a lot of the landscape change in college baseball, wanted to just allow you to give people just an idea of your background. Obviously, you coached high school for not quite a decade, and then you've been with the Dirtbags for well over a decade.
Yeah, so obviously I'm an East Carolina alumni. I started off going to Pitt Community College, and I'm originally from New Bern. I'll try to keep the story short, but anyway, I went up to Pitt Community College in 2002, and I got over to Greenville, and honestly, I was kind of burnt out from baseball, and I decided, I'm just going to be a student over at Pitt, and I was 1 year over at Pitt, and I kind of missed baseball, and I called a guy I know by the name of Mark Karam, who lives in Havelock, North Carolina now, or actually lives in New Bern now, but he worked at Cherry Point. He would drive from Greenville, from New Bern to Greenville every day, and he coached with a guy named Robert Peanut Langston, and Coach Langston was awesome. Gave me an opportunity to put my foot in the door, and I coached over at South Central. I started as an assistant coach on the varsity level, and then he put me in charge of the JV team. And once I got done with Pitt, I went over to East Carolina, where that was a great time in my life. I went there for 5 years, I believe. And I continued to coach high school baseball for those 5 years. And, at the end of the day, I got a speeding ticket literally 2 weeks left in college. And the lawyer that was representing me by the name of Bart Brown, he is still there. He asked me if I would like to work for him and be a runner, basically, from 8 to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then he would let me go coach high school baseball. And I was like, man, this is awesome. So I would get off at 3, I'd change in the parking lot, and I'd go over to South Central, and I continued to coach there for a little while. And my boss now, Andy Parton, came to me and asked me, hey, do you want to do baseball full time? So that was 12 years later, or 12 years earlier, excuse me. But it's been a great opportunity. At the end of the day, I'm doing this to help kids achieve their dreams and aspirations of playing college baseball.
Certainly, and there have been, I believe, you can correct me here if I'm wrong, but I know, at least as we were discussing back a few weeks ago up in Winston-Salem, and I've heard you mention this in other interviews, and 60 plus Dirtbags over the last decade during the Cliff Godwin era have played for the Pirates?
That is around the right number. I think it's 62 to be exact. But when Cliff, it was crazy. But I got a call now when Cliff was at Ole Miss. He wasn't doing much interaction with the Dirtbags. He recruited like 2 guys, I think, at Ole Miss when I was early on in my Dirtbag career. And I was living over by Best Buy, and I was taking a shower one day, and my phone rang, and obviously I was in the shower. So I got out of the shower, and I had a call from Cliff Godwin, and I'm like, what is this about? And basically I called him back, and he told me, hey, Trey, I'm coming home. Let's get ready. And I've known Cliff since – basically, when I was in high school, my one of my good friends was his brother was teammates with Cliff, and that's how long me and Cliff gone back since 2002. And basically, he said, "I'm coming home. We're going to turn this thing around," and here we are today.
So, tell Pirate Nation. I mean, obviously, as we were discussing off the air, guys like Trey Savage, Ryan McChrystal, Connor Norby, Jacob Jenkins Coward, Wizenhunt, back in his early years, Josh Moreland, and a whole host of others, have come from the Dirtbags organization down through the years. And here in a moment, we'll dive into some of those current Pirates and as well as future Pirates who played for you guys. But um, some of those guys that I just mentioned, I mean, seeing the success that a Connor Norby has had, currently, I think a 7-game hit streak coming in tonight with his time with the Miami Marlins, and the first ever Miami Marlin to have 6 extra base hits in his first 6 games. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, that is impressive. But to start with on Trey Savage, I don't think enough people in Pirate Nation give the staff as a whole, Jeff Palumbo, Austin Knight, those guys, I don't think they give them enough credit because you see the product on the field when they get older. You don't see the product when they're younger. Now they all had tools, but for example, Trey Savage was a Pittsburgh commit. And he decommitted, or I don't know exactly what happened. But anyway, he was a late addition to Pirate Nation. And if you go back and you watch the video of Trey throwing in Jupiter and you watch his delivery, now he had arm strength, but his delivery was off timing. And he went over to East Carolina, and obviously they fixed him, and he worked hard, and that was the ingredient for success. But you look at a guy like that, and then you look at a guy like Connor Norby. Now, you see the success he's having in the big leagues. But in all honesty, and I love Connor, but when he was at this age in high school senior, high school junior, he had the bat to ball skills, but his defense was probably the area he needed to work on. And, with the infield coach over there with Coach Palumbo, like he's one of the best in the country. So, everybody over there in Pirate Nation is spoiled because they see these kids having success. They don't see the opportunity these kids get early on in their career in the developmental side of it from the Pirate coaching staff.
Yeah, well said. And that's something that Cliff has reiterated, just especially in this day and age. And we'll dive into the current landscape of college baseball with the NIL, transfer portal, and so on, with scholarship, with the roster reductions and scholarship increases here in a little bit. But that's something that Cliff has rightly touted, this staff's ability to develop.
Yeah, absolutely. You hear some coaches talk about that stuff, and some of it is just poster board material, but they live by it. I mean, you see the transition of these kids because I watch these kids for 2 or 3, 4 years, and then they get over to Pirate Nation, and some of them you're like, whoa, that guy really got a lot better. And obviously, at the end of the day, that's what this is about: is the kids continue to get opportunities and get better. But I can't praise enough of the staff of how they develop kids over there. I mean, there's just so many things you could talk about, so many success stories. But the prime ingredient when it comes to Cliff Godwin's players, they got to be tough, they got to be mentally strong, and they got to be ready to compete when they get there.
And that's the other piece. You talk about the development of Connor Norby's defense. It's well documented, Cliff as well as Connor in several interviews since, just talking about his development from an academic standpoint, perhaps just off the field and things away from baseball, and his attention to detail, and just how he grew because he was close to perhaps not being part of the program anymore, and then he figured things out, and it became a very high draft pick.
Yeah, I'm not beating a drum here, but Cliff Godwin is the guy that you want to have as far as pushing the right buttons, making kids better. And like, I can't praise Jeff Palumbo enough because once you get Cliff, you get Jeff. Well, and Jeff will probably laugh at this, but I ask these kids that go over to East Carolina, how is it when you get there? Because I'm always trying to figure it out. And, they say, and I'm like, how tough is Cliff? And they're like, he's tough. He's like, but don't be fooled. Jeff Palumbo's just as tough because he's just the guy, just like Cliff. They've been together for a long time, but there's more than one man that runs that operation over there. It's just not Cliff Godwin. So, Pirate Nation, in all honesties, they're a little spoiled right now because of all the success they've had, but there's a lot of hard work that goes on behind the scenes. There's not a lot like, hey, let's go call this kid from, Washington, and he's the number 5 ranked player in the country, and let's go get him. Like, they actually have to develop guys. And I think that's a big part of today's environment that people do not see. People see all the, the Paul Skeens and the high ranked players, but they don't see the blood, sweat, and tears that these kids that are, I don't want to say under the radar, but, the kids that actually have to develop, they can really do a great job with them.
They really do. And, current East Carolina Pirates that are, have that background with the Dirtbag organization. Michael Irby pitched very well this summer with the Crop Dusters in the Cal Ripton Collegiate League. Jackson DiLorenzo, certainly, had quality outings, as a freshman, and some high leverage situations. Ethan Norby, man, how he stepped up in that Greenville Regional. What a gutsy performance, after throwing about 50, maybe even 60 pitches on Friday. He turns around on Sunday night and goes over 100, and just a very, very gutsy performance against Evansville. And then you also have J.D. Little, incoming this year in the class of 24, Austin Irby, Ian White Jr., Tyler Brashear, Holden Cooper. If you would, we'll go down the list, and if you want to lead off with Ethan Norby and what you saw from him as a freshman, and Cliff was very quick to point out. He said he's a complete 180 from the standpoint of the work ethic and attention to detail and stuff compared to his brother.
Yeah, I've been on record saying this before, but the Ethan Norby thing was crazy because, obviously Connor played for us, and Connor calls me out of the blue, and obviously Connor's in AA at the time, and he calls me, and I think I'm in the other room or something, and like I've got a missed call, and I get back to my phone, and I got a call from Connor Norby, and I'm like, man, he probably butt dialed me. Like I don't know why he's calling me, but he texted me and said, hey, can you call me? So I call him. I'm like, hey man, what do you got? I'm figuring he's probably in the area or doing something. I don't really know what he wanted, but he's like, hey, I need a favor. And I'm like, absolutely. What you got? And he's like, can you go watch my brother? And I'm like, at that point, I had never heard of Ethan. I had heard of him, but I didn't know like what he could do. So I said, sure. So I, connected with Ethan, and I asked him when he was pitching, and he's like, hey, I'm pitching at such and such time at Charlotte Christian, or down in Charlotte, excuse me, at South Meck High School against Charlotte Christian. So I go down there, and at the time, Charlotte Christian has a guy, or excuse me, East Forsyth has a guy that's getting highly drafted and draft attention and all this. And basically, Charlotte Christian's team has 12 or 13 Division I players on it. And so I'm going down there like I'm not expecting much. And I go down there and I watch Ethan Norby. And Ethan Norby is 84 to 87 that night, spinning a breaking ball at 72 to 75 and throwing his changeup. And Bubba, he literally won the game himself. Basically, don't quote me, I think he struck out 13 that night. Now they lost the game 1-0 on a flare because they couldn't score a run, obviously. But Ethan Norby had a game. I walked out of that place. I got in my car and I called Connor. Connor didn't answer. He called me back. He's like, what do you think? I was like, Connor, to be honest with you, I think he could get you out. So I was on the phone with Jeff and Cliff that night. Obviously, I went up to his parents and introduced myself to them again, since it had been a couple of years since Connor had played for us. And I just told him, like, look, man, this is really going to work out. And it's kind of funny, but former East Carolina coach Billy Godwin was there at from UNCG at the time. And he was like, hey, man, I'll take this guy back with me to UNCG right now, and he could pitch on my staff as a joke. And we kind of laughed about it. But, with the Norby situation, I mean, that one kind of just fell in my lap, just basically because his brother was looking out for him. So I always shoot a text to Connor and Ethan every once in a while just to get him going and good laugh. But that's a really good memory I have from doing this job.
Yep, and with that success that Ethan had throughout his freshman year, especially the last third, and you saw him taking on a bit of a leadership role in the sense, that he was pretty fiery on the mound. I mean, you saw him bouncing off the mound there in that game 6 of the Greenville Regional, when he was getting big outs against the Purple Aces.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer either you've got the passion or you don't have the passion. And Ethan's always had the passion. Everybody's caught up in the how hard this kid throws or how hard this guy throws. And at the end of the day, you got to throw the ball over the plate. It doesn't matter if you're throwing the ball 96 and you're throwing it all over the backstop. Ethan's always been in the zone, and he always has his stuff play up because he's got that competitive edge that he's going to get you out. And I think that's a big adversary as far as a pitcher. Not so much the velocity, even though you have to have that to get people out. You've also got to have some competitive edge when you're on the mound.
And then let's shift to those, I say future Pirates, but the ones with that incoming class of 2024, starting off with Austin Irby, whose brother Michael, of course, already in the Pirate program, a right-handed pitcher. But Austin, 6 feet, 190 pounds, thereabouts, a corner infielder, outfielder from Virginia Beach, and says one of the top third baseman in the state of Virginia. I mean, tell us about Austin.
Yeah, first of all, when you hear the name Irby, from the husband to the mom to Austin and Michael, those guys, that whole family is class act. They are awesome people. They support their kids. They support where they are. I mean, as far as people makeup, the Irbies are about as best as you can have around this day and time. But back to the question of breaking them down. So, Michael has worked hard. He had a little arm injury coming out of his senior year of his high school, but he's worked hard. He had a great summer, from what I understand. I think he's another guy that, at the end of the day, he's going to work hard. So he's worked his way back to being a little better than he was when he started with. So I think you're going to see some spurts of him early on getting some opportunities. And, if I know anything about the Irby last name, they're going to run with opportunities. They always have. Talking about his brother, Austin, who's a 2024 grad, the dude can really, really hit. He's a left-handed hitter. I project him as a corner infielder, either first base or third base. But, at the end of the day, he can really roll the pole. So, that Taco Bell sign in right field, I'm going to say he's going to hit it a couple times this year. But with that being said, the dude can really, really hit. So, not as far as the last name is Irby as class people. Then you start talking about Michael as far as a pitchability right-hander. And then you talk about Austin, the younger brother of Michael. And I think of hit tool. That's my first thing I think about when I hear that name.
How about Ian White Jr.? I mean, out of Haverford, Pennsylvania, and 6'2", 195, one of the top 3 to 5, depending on the publication you look at, right-handed pitchers in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, so he played for us, let's see, it was last year. We actually called him Slider White. Now, when he comes, he's going to be a bullpen arm, but he's going to come in, he's going to spin that slider. Now, that slider is really, really good. When you're talking about spin rates and all the analytical side of it, it's up in the 3,000s. So that's not to give too much of a scouting report, but he throws from a different slot, and that ball has depth on the slider.
How about Tyler Brashear, another right-handed pitcher, I believe Pottstown, PA?
Yep. So Tyler he's a tall, lean right-hander. He's got a good arm. When he pitched for us, he would fill up the zone. His secondary stuff has to get a little better, But, with Coach Knight, he does a great job with pitching, and he's going to be able to develop Tyler. But Tyler's the guy that you dream on as far as you see as the long, lanky body right-hander that has a way to jump in the future in a Pirate uniform.
An in-state kid on this next one, Holden Cooper. I believe you've already referenced him on air tonight. We certainly talked about him pre-show out of Wakefield in Raleigh, and one of the top catchers in the state of North Carolina in his class.
Yeah, when Holden played for us, Holden's always been a guy that works hard. So first and foremost, he's going to be a guy that goes in there and kind of grinds his way in there. Now, when you look at Holden, when he played for us, he could do a little bit of everything. He could play. He played shortstop. He pitched a little bit at Wakefield. His sophomore year, he had a really good summer. Hit a couple home runs with a wood bat. In his junior year, he struggled a little bit, to be honest with you. He struggled, but he came on later on in the year. Now, like I said, when you think about Holden Cooper, that's a blue chip type, I'm going to work hard type guy. So he's always been able to kind of claw and fight his way through. But now, as versatile as he is, he's now, I think, behind the plate there, which, Cliff was a catcher at East Carolina, and he's going to have to, learn Cliff's way back there, because all catchers going in there have to learn the way of Cliff Godwin. But, Holden Cooper, you'll be interesting to watch the developmental side of this, like we always talk about with the players, because, with that staff over there, if Holden's going to get to where he wants to in a Pirate uniform, then he's got the right people around him with that support staff.
He certainly does. And you talk about Cliff Godwin's background as a catcher. A ton of former catchers on this staff, pitching coach Austin Knight, as well as others.
Yeah, I don't want to beat this drum too big, but a lot of college programs out there are winning because they have really good players. Nothing against East Carolina, but East Carolina's got good players that they make great. So especially in this day and time with the NIL and how all this transfer portal mess is, again, people sitting in the stands at Pirate Nation do not understand the dedication, the time, the work ethic that Jeff Palumbo, Austin Knight, Henry Lartigue, all these guys pour into those kids that walk in that door the first day of fall workouts.
Moving to the 25 class, let's start off with Brett Beasley, 6'2", 185 pound, middle infielder and right-handed pitcher. Where do you see him projecting?
Yeah, the thing when I think about Brett Beasley is I think about athletic freak. So with Beasley, he's so athletic that you might even see him in the outfield. I mean, it wouldn't be far-fetched to see the guy play any position on the field besides obviously first base. I mean, he can get on the mound. He's going to be 88 to 91 right now. He can play on the left side of the infield. He can play at second base. He could go out there and play outfield and he's probably like a 6'6", 6'7" runner, somewhere in that range. But, the bat to ball skills in all reality have to get a little better, but he's so athletic that I think once he gets over there and in that routine, you're going to see a guy that can really, really do it, just basically because I keep saying it, but the player development side of it is so big over there. And, at the beginning stage, you rather have a kid that's athletic rather than a kid that's not athletic, because you can't make a non-athletic kid into an athletic kid. So, I think bright things are in store for Brett, but at the end of the day, he's in the right scenario going in there.
This next one, an Eastern North Carolina kid, what a name, James Sawyer, but goes by Sawyer.
Yeah, so Sawyer is originally from Greenville. His sister plays softball over there. So there's a lot of Eastern North Carolina ties with Sawyer. Like the first time we had him try out for us, and I remember writing it down on the piece of paper. I'm like, this can't be right. But yeah, it's right. Sawyer. So Sawyer's he's a competitive kid. I mean, he's going to be, right now he's 88 to 90 on the mound. And, He fills the zone up. He's a short statute right-hander. I think I'm 5'10". He's probably 5'11". But again, he's a great kid. He works hard. I think he embodies Greenville, North Carolina. He had some other opportunities, but he decided he wanted to stay home and give it a shot with old Cliff Godwin and his staff.
Braden Bachman, Braden, what, from Hickory, North Carolina?
He is actually from Hickory, Virginia.
Hickory, Virginia.
Hickory, Virginia. Or I don't know if it's Hickory, Virginia. I think his high school is called
Hickory High School in Virginia.
Yep, there you go. So
gotcha.
You think about Braden Bachman, and the same thing with Austin Irby. You think hitterish. Now, these dudes can really, really hit. Now, Braden, you're going to laugh at him the first time you see him because the dude looks like a surfer. He's got long hair, kind of curls behind his ears. He's physically strong. Now, as far as a high school kid going into a college program, this dude is yoked. Like he is in the weight room. He's probably in the weight room right now at 9:40 at night. But with him, he is a guy that's going to come in and the bat is immediately going to play just because of the physicality of him. I mean, these guys on the circuit, they're hitting baseballs with wood bats. But Braden Bachman, as far as hitterish, that guy can really, really do it. He's got thunder. So, might want to tell the Greenville PD they might want to stop traffic out there when him and Luke Craddock get up to bat because under those Cliff Godwin's hitting philosophy and Bryant Packard over there's going to be a lot of balls out there on Charles Boulevard.
Yeah, nice transition there as far as Luke Craddock. And elaborate a little bit more on the talent that is Luke Craddock.
Yeah, so Luke Craddock's probably 6'2", 220 pounds, 215 pounds, somewhere in there. Again, physically strong kid. And Luke has showed light tower power at times for us. I think once he gets over to East Carolina and Cliff really gets him in his legs and he's not kind of jumping out on the front side, you're going to see balls absolutely hammered from that guy. And, the one thing about Luke, and again, the ingredient with Luke is Luke's a nice kid off the field, but once he starts playing baseball, it is a different monster. He's gonna work hard. He's gonna be more physical, and he's physical right now. Him and Bachman, they do not look like freshmen next year walking into that place. But with any freshman, there's going to be transitions. They're going to have to learn the scheme of Cliff and hitting in your legs. And at the end of the day, though, they are going to be able to backspin baseballs all over the field there.
And one more from the class of 25, Jack Strom.
Yep. So Jack is actually playing with us this fall. He's from Millbrook High School. He is a left-handed hitter, corner outfielder type. And again, he's a guy that can really, really hit. Now, when you look at Jack compared to Austin Irby at this age, the hand-eye is about the same. Austin's probably a little stronger at this age. Jack's probably a little better athlete at this age. But again, the hit tool for both of those young men is there. So, I will say this, and, people don't understand, but like when I see Jeff Palumbo on the road and he's watching a kid play, I don't care if he's playing for us or playing for another organization. If you go ask Jeff, hey, what did Johnny Joe do on field 3 at East Cobb at 12:40? Jeff can tell you he struck out his first at bat, he doubled, struck out his third at bat, he homered in his fourth at bat. The attention to detail from Jeff Palumbo is unbelievable. Now, I can ask some other college coaches, hey, what do you think about this guy? They'll be like, oh, he's just okay, or he's fine. And I'm like, how do you do today? And they can't tell you. But Jeff, I mean, if there's a needle in the haystack, that guy's going to find it.
Moving to a guy that the Pirates acquired from the transfer portal. Of course, you had the leadership change with that Liberty program with Scott Jackson electing to move back to the University of North Carolina on Scott Forbes' staff. Taylor Grubbs, a kid that's originally from North Carolina. Tell us what you can about Taylor.
Yeah, so it's funny. Scott Jackson's son actually plays for us here in the Dirtbags, and he's a 2028, and he played this past weekend with us down at Coastal. And Bubba, if you get a chance to watch this guy play, Tyler Jackson as a 2028, he is a premier defender in the country. Like, I don't think there's many kids that can defend like him at that young of an age. But, Coach Jackson's an awesome guy. Taylor Grubbs actually played high school baseball with Jacob Jenkins Cowart. He's from the Southeast Guilford, the Falcons. Taylor, when he was coming up with us, obviously he was an athletic kid. He did a little bit of everything. He pitched and played infield. Now he's a pitcher. At the age he played for us, he had a live fastball, had some late life. The secondary stuff was just okay. But now he's been in a college program for a year, and the way Coach Jackson and Tyler Robinson, who's at Ohio State, and Matt Williams, who's at Coastal Carolina, those two pitching coaches, and now he's at Austin with Austin Knight. I mean, he's gonna be able to make some gains. In my opinion, his fastball probably needs to tick up a little bit. Now, I haven't seen him in 3 years, so give him some credit. He's probably a little better than the last time I saw him. But again, Austin knows what he's doing. Coach Knight knows what he's doing, and he saw something in Taylor that he really, really liked. And when Taylor played for us, he was another competitive kid.
Another Liberty transfer that East Carolina acquired. He did not play for the Dirtbags, but I know you're certainly familiar with him, and that is, I believe, Wake Forest, North Carolina native, Nick Moran.
Yep, not to get too much off topic, but with Nick Moran, he was actually committed to a Division III school, and he's a left-handed pitcher, and he was committed to a Division III school coming out of high school, and Coach Williams, now at Coastal Carolina, saw him and liked him, and he ended up over at Liberty, and he's made jumps over at Liberty under Coach Williams and Coach Robinson, who's now at Ohio State, and Coach Austin Knight obviously has him now. But I think this guy's going to be vital for the Pirates. He's left-handed. He can really, really spin the baseball, and he's got pitchability. Comping him, I don't want to say he's Ethan Norby. And I don't want to say Ethan Norby's Nick Moran, but being left-handed and being able to control the baseball in the inner half and the outer half of the zone and move it around is vital when getting college hitters out.
And the Pirates saw Nick Moran, in Lynchburg this year. He pitched very well against ECU for 5+ innings, and then the Pirates were able to get to him there a little bit in the middle innings. But, the Pirates obviously acquired several other arms out of the portal. Do you have any familiarity with a guy that's originally from Pennsylvania, coming to ECU from Texas A&M, Brett Antolik?
Yeah, so I know Coach Kane, who is now, he was the recruiting coordinator at Texas A&M. Now he's the recruiting coordinator at Texas. This baseball network is actually very, very small. But I know he has a really good arm. Coach Knight's going to get him in the zone more, but he's a guy that, he didn't get a lot of run down there just basically because, the stable is so deep down there in Texas A&M. But with that said, I've had heard that kid has a really good arm, and he's got a chance to be a frontline guy for the Pirates when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I've heard. I'll give credit here. I believe it was Stephen Igo with Hoist the Colors. Think that it came down to, I think ECU and Virginia were his finalists as he was exiting the portal.
Yeah, and if you know anything about Virginia, they've always got some guys that can pitch. So hey, enough credit does not go to the East Carolina staff on how they kind of have got Greenville rolling, and kids want to be part of that tradition.
Before we shift gears, Trey, and talk a little for the next few minutes about the bigger picture and the landscape of college baseball and how drastically it's changing. This is something we talked quite a bit about in person back in the beginning of the month. But go ahead, and if you like to plug some of the other Dirtbags and kids that you have that may have committed elsewhere, or maybe even guys that have not committed anywhere yet.
Yeah, there are so many kids that we've been fortunate enough to have that really trust what we do. I think our program embodies a little bit of what East Carolina does. We just want to make players better and see where they land at the end of the day. From the kids, especially this day and time with how the landscape of college baseball is changing, You need opportunities. You need to go where you can play. You need to get better, because ultimately, with how the NIL and the portal and all the stuff is working, like nothing is ever the same. But if you go somewhere that you can really dig your feet in, you've got a chance to be successful. I've got a kid that I'm coaching right now by the name of Palmer Hornick, and I'm going to plug him a little bit. Now, Palmer hits in the 2-hole for me. He's a left-handed hitter. He's a high school middle infielder. He can pitch. He's up to 88 on the mound. Now he's 5'10". He's probably my size. And this past weekend, we put him behind the plate to catch. And he hadn't caught in 2 years. And he's throwing balls down to second at 197.20 pop times. The exchange behind the plate is as good as his exchange in the middle, and on the double play feed. That's a guy that I am beating the bushes on with some people about getting this kid, because when that 34-man roster comes and you have to have 34 guys on the roster in a midweek game, when you need somebody to throw, he can do it. If you need somebody to play infield in the second base, shortstop, or third base position, he can do it. Then if you got to have somebody catch, he can do it. And not to mention the bat to ball skills are as good as I've ever coached. Now, he doesn't show like the 95-mile-an-hour arm across the infield, or he doesn't show hitting balls 102 off the bat. But at the end of the day, this kid's a damn baseball player, and that's what you need to win with, are baseball players. And that's what people have won with that are successful at this, are baseball players, not showcase players.
Yeah, no doubt. And as I mentioned, now let's shift gears. The scholarships for years, I mean, you even have a podcast, the 11.7 podcast. So now for the 25-26 athletic year, you're going to have scholarships, and not necessarily, I mean, schools don't have to do it, and some can't do it, but you're going to have the potential, we think, to get to 34. Some may be 15 or 20. Or who knows where in between that 11.7 and 34 number. But, and then you have roster sizes going from 40 to 34. And what are you hearing? And you're obviously very well connected. And, you talk to so many coaches throughout the region, and, big time programs. What are you hearing regarding these topics?
Well, it's interesting you asked, Bubba, because today I heard from a coach in the Big Ten that says anybody that's telling you they know what's going on is lying, because nobody knows what's going on. But besides, between the settlements, the Title IXs, the revenue shares, nobody knows what's going on in college baseball. And at the end of the day, that trickles down to the coaches. Then it trickles down to the players, and then it trickles down to the parents, and then it trickles down to the administration. So it's all a big mess. We got to have the NCAA step up and have some clarity for everybody involved. Now, the one thing I have heard that is constant is there are going to be 34 scholarships available at certain schools. But say you're school X and you want to have 34 scholarships, and you go to your administration and the admin goes, hey, we can't do 34 scholarships, then they're going to be at 11.7, unfortunately. So it's not going to be an even level playing field. Hell, it's not an even playing field now. That's why I always, talk to our guys about, hey, go where you can play. That's what it's all about, But unfortunately, the social media and all the eyes on that now, it's all about the clicks, man, and I can understand it from a 16 to 22-year-old mind. Like, hey, man, I'm going to commit to school, big school university, and they go there and they don't like it. Well, guess what's going to happen again? They're going to go in the portal the next year. So, again, you've got to find the right fit when you're trying to figure this thing out. But as far as what's going on with, the 11.7, the 34-man, it is crazy because nobody knows. And I'm going to put myself in Cliff Godwin's shoes, for example. So let's say in 2026, you have 34 scholarships, and the NCAA says, hey, you can only have 34 people on the roster. Okay, so the first day of the fall, you've got 34 guys. All right, well, we know college students, they like to go out and have a good time. Well, let's say one goes out and has a good time and trips off the curb downtown, breaks his leg. Well, now you're down to 33. Okay, let's say one gets homesick. Now you're down to 32. Let's say one doesn't make grades. Now you're down to 31. Let's say that one has a pitching injury. Now you're down to 30. So how are you going to justify having 34 guys at the start to try to make a baseball team? Now I know when Cliff first got there, he whittled the roster way down. And I'm good friends with Eric Tyler, and we laugh about it. But he was like, man, that was a great time, and we were very well spent at the end of the year. But you cannot tell me in the NCAA is going to say, hey, you got to have 34 guys once you step on campus in the fall. Like, this system is messed up.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up that story regarding Eric Tyler in that 2015 season. I recall Coach Godwin as well as players on that team, kind of laughing about it, that when you made a road trip, or there were times that you would typically have to make those decisions about who was going to travel, and there were no decisions to be made.
Hey, that's easy on Cliff's part. Hey, everybody travels. But I was talking, I won't name the school, but I was talking to a coach this past week that's a mid-major program in the Southeast, and he was telling me, he said, hey, Trey, if this happens, you're going to see people booking midweek games. They're not going to play them. You're not going to see many inter-squad scrimmages with live arms. Like, they're going to have to pull back on the throttle of these kids because you're going to have to make it through a season. So, you look at the football roster, they can have 80 guys, and basketball can have 15 guys. Like, somebody in the NCAA needs to wake up and make a smart, educated decision.
Yep, no doubt. And, so just the trickle down effect, how do you see it? I was listening to the guys really enjoy the content put out by D1 Baseball and their YouTube channel. But here in the last few weeks, they were talking just about the impact of these things that I mentioned, with the roster limits and scholarship increases, it's in NIL, etc. As far as D2, D3, etc.,
Yep.
and just making those levels of baseball better.
Yeah, now that is going to make it better, and that's by default. That is going to make it better because kids are going to have to go where they can play. Now, I told a coach this past week. It really puts a Band-Aid on people that do a bad job recruiting because they can go in the portal and get a quick fix off a kid that has developed somewhere else. I say that in all candidness, like the bigger the school, like they can, if they recruit the wrong player at a younger age and they commit him, well, they can go get a guy out of the portal that's been developed. So and I'm going to sound like I'm 80 years old here, but I don't like it because the schools, and I'm an East Carolina grad, and I bleed purple and gold when it comes down to it. But these schools that do a great job recruiting, as far as these kids, East Carolina, North Carolina, UNCW, Coastal, NC State, all the guys in the region do a great job recruiting. Now, you're going to tell me that we're going to develop a kid, he's going to get great opportunities, he's going to get better, and then all of a sudden, this Lambo is going to drive by and say, hey, here's some money. Come over here and we'll give it to you. Like, man, that's not real life, man, because at the end of the day, once you get a job in the real world, if you don't work hard, well, you're going to get fired. If you work hard, you're going to get better opportunities, but then there's some loyalty when it comes into it.
No doubt, and that's one of the things that I really admire regarding Trey Savage. I mean, because it was documented that that he had offers of 6 figures from ACC programs, etc., and for him to remain loyal to East Carolina. And you saw when he had his stellar performance that day against Chase Burns and Wake Forest at Clark LeClaire, what being a Pirate meant to him, when he left the mound for the final time.
Yeah, I think, and unfortunately in this region we live in North Carolina and South Carolina and Virginia, there's actually really good people involved with college baseball from App State to Charlotte to East Carolina to Wake Forest to, Coastal Carolina to Clemson to South Carolina to UVA to Virginia Tech. These guys are great people. So we're actually very fortunate enough in North Carolina, Virginia, and South Carolina to have great people surrounded around these kids, But I mean, look, people, and putting myself in their shoes, kind of, my team finished 5th in the country this year. We had a great year. Now, I've had kids all over the country that want to play for us now. Now, there's some ins and outs that, I'll cross with some of them. But like the team I've got right now, it's a real team. Now, could we have won it? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, we give these kids opportunities. And then these other travel programs come in and go, hey, we can do X, Y, and Z for you. And for the most part, knock on wood, I've had a lot of kids that are stayed loyal to the Dirtbags. And, let's be realistic with everybody. I mean, once these kids get opportunities and they develop, the grass ain't always greener on the other side. Now, while they'll tell you it is, in reality, 9 times out of 10, you need to be where your feet are.
Trey, really appreciate the time tonight. Before we let you go, obviously it's game week for East Carolina football. Yes, this is a baseball podcast, but had to bring up Pirate football. What are your thoughts this year? Obviously, need a big turnaround after the season that was 2023, and really excited to see this offense of John David Baker.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch that too. It's kind of like the old school air raid out there with Mike Leach and all, Lincoln and all them. I'm excited to watch it, fast tempo. But, and if Cliff and the guys are listening to this, they're probably asleep. But if they're listening to this, we need Pirate football to be very, very good again, because once it turns good and all the recruits can come in there and watch it, it only helps the whole atmosphere around Greenville. Not saying it was bad, but I remember when I was a student there, and, me and Shane Matthews talk a lot now, who was a pitcher at East Carolina back in the day. But that place was rocking. Now, when that place rocks, the whole town rocks. And the baseball program ends up getting better players because of the atmosphere at the football games.
Yeah, like you're saying, you think back to 2008, so, when you have Pat White, being held without a touchdown for the only time in his college career, and the way Dowdy Ficklin was that day.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's crazy, but now in this new era we're in, so the era we're in with when kids can't talk to college coaches until August 1 of their junior year. Well, they can go to camps and see them and talk to them on camps, but they can't offer them basically in person until September 1 of their junior year. Well, September is football season. So when East Carolina football is good and they can bring those kids in to see that environment that I went to school in, you're like, this is a pretty good gig right here. No, not calling anybody out, but UNCW doesn't have football. Campbell's football is smaller. NC State has football. North Carolina has football. Duke has football. So the better the atmosphere is in Greenville for the gridiron, the better it helps Cliff.
Yep. Both the atmosphere, obviously the finances of it,
Yep.
if you were to, to make, clearly just on so many levels. And if you were to have that memorable season, where you break through and make the 12-team college football playoff, the financial impact of that is obviously tremendous. But Trey, really appreciate the time. Appreciate you spending 45 minutes with us, and let people know how they can follow you on social media, be it on X or Instagram.
Yeah, so you can just type my name on X, and I put a lot of baseball information out there. Not just East Carolina stuff. I put players' information out there because, at the end of the day, I want to be able to help kids get to college, no matter if it's Division I to junior college baseball. That's what this job's all about. I've been fortunate enough to help a lot of kids. I'm going to keep working hard and see what happens. And, I'm grateful for all the opportunities that I've had in life. And we're going to hopefully get Pirates to Omaha one of these days. And we'll be right alongside each other like we're at Wake Forest watching the Futures game.
Sounds good. Look forward to having you back on down the road. Take care, and I would love to maybe catch up with you this time if you're able to get to Dowdy Ficklin this fall around your busy baseball schedule.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, we need the Pirates athletics all to be good because when one team wins, they all win.
No doubt. Well, Pirate Nation, that is Trey Daly. I appreciate his time this evening. We'll probably, well, no, probably, we will definitely have him back on the show, moving into the future as we talk about more Pirates that are with the Dirtbags. Now let's move into our MLB report. We have 5 Pirates in the big leagues. You have Gavin Williams. Gavin actually pitched tonight. You have Alec Burleson and Sean Armstrong with the St. Louis Cardinals. Burley hitting 277 with 21 bombs. And then Sean Armstrong has really been pitching well for St. Louis in his last 7 outings. So here in the month of August, all but one outing for Sean Armstrong. He has not allowed a run in 7 consecutive games, over 6 2/3 innings, all in short relief, anywhere from a third of an inning to an inning and a third, and has surrendered just 2 hits in those 6 2/3 innings. So that's great to see Sean pitching so well since he arrived in St. Louis from Tampa Bay. Connor Norby, earlier I referenced. Connor has been on fire in Miami in his last 7 games coming into tonight. 10 for 29, that 7 game hit streak, batting .345, 2 home runs, 4 other extra base hits, becoming the first Miami Marlin to ever have 6 extra base hits in his first 6 games with the franchise. And that's just great to see. He's also playing third base. Of course, he had been an outfielder and second baseman with the Orioles, and the Marlins shifted him over to third base, and started him with the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp. But he got the call up to Miami quickly, as I thought he probably would. And and then you have in the minors, Zach Agnos. Zach is pitching really well for the Hartford Yard Goats. A couple of terrific outings here of late. The other night, he earned his 5th save, came in a high leverage situation, and Zach 2 shutout innings, a couple of Ks, and then another outing recently. Um, Came in tie game in the 9th inning, struck out the side. So Zach Agnos really excelling in that Colorado Rockies organization. Um, Kind of shifting gears to one of the incoming Pirates, a guy that's transferring in from Rollins College down in Florida, Winter Park, Florida. Played for the Greenville Yard Gnomes this summer. Jack Herring, 8 home runs, which ranked 4th in the CPL. 36 RBIs, which also ranked 4th in the Coastal Plain League, and then 49 hits, which was tied for 6th. So really excited to have Jack Herring as part of the ECU program. Another note on the East Carolina coaching staff, Eddie Losner, a guy that has been in Eastern North Carolina for decades. He was part of Keith LeClaire's staff when Cliff Godwin was in the program. He was director of ops then. Well, with Blake Hardigree stepping down, really appreciate everything he did for the program. Coach Godwin really commended him for his job behind the scenes. With everything that a director of ops position entails, a very thankless position. In the eyes of people that follow East Carolina baseball. Very few understand everything that's going on behind the scenes to run the program as efficiently as ECU runs it. But Eddie Losner is the new director of ops, and that was announced back in early August, August 2nd to be exact, on social media. And Eddie, in addition to that background with ECU in the early 2000s, also spent, most recently was the head coach at Farmville Central, and had also been the head coach at Kinston, Northern Nash, and then I think maybe even one other high school in Eastern North Carolina. So a guy that's very well connected, throughout the region, and certainly bleeds purple and gold, loves ECU baseball. Um, the Pirates bringing 31 newcomers into the program, here with the class of 2024. And, just or first of all, 16 pitchers, 15 positional players. Again, 31 newcomers, 16 pitchers, 15 positional players. And by comparison, I was curious how that compared to recent years. In the fall of 23, you had 22 newcomers. In the fall of 22, you had 17, new additions to the program this time of that fall back 2 years ago. So it's definitely far and away the most newcomers that ECU has brought in, and it was certainly needed, with the pieces that were exiting the program, be it a pro baseball or guys that opted to enter the transfer portal. But we'll certainly do a deep dive on the roster. You heard about some of these guys tonight, guys like Austin Irby and Ian White Jr., and then Tyler Brashear, etc. The ones that had a background with Trey Daly and the Dirtbags. But we'll dive into all of those guys on an upcoming podcast. Also, in the very near future, perhaps episode 6, if not soon thereafter. Lee Delfino, Lee's back in his native Canada, and he's running a promotional items business, and look forward to catching up with Lee. He was an excellent shortstop on those Cliff Godwin teams, under Coach LeClaire, Cliff Godwin teammate, I should say, and look forward to taking a trip down memory lane with Lee Delfino and talking about what he's up to now. But really appreciate everyone tuning in, whether it's live right now on YouTube, and here our next episode we'll probably be able to broadcast live on Facebook as well. You can also hear our podcast audio only on Spotify. Be sure to follow us on social media. On X, we can be found at Jungle Tales Pod, also at Jungle Tales Pod on YouTube and Instagram. But we appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll talk to you soon here on Jungle Tales, an ECU baseball podcast. And as always, go Pirates.